A tearing, stabbing pain spread from the frozen ends of my limbs, and the air carried the mixed smells of gasoline, scorch, and the chilling bite of wind and snow. The moment I opened my eyes, what filled my ears wasn't the howling wind of snowy mountains, but the hum of the office air conditioner and the clatter of keyboards. This time for our mountain homestay team building trip, I've done my homework. This is the province's top private snow scene villa. The front row Sarah turned around, holding a color page from her phone, her voice barely containing excitement. If Brother David hadn't pulled strings to book it, this kind of room would be gone. Let's all thank Brother David properly. The people around immediately echoed their praise. Seated at the neighboring desk, David adjusted his tie, wearing a restrained smile, and waved him off. You've all worked hard for a year. This isn't anything special. I've already reserved the best bus with administration, and we'll depart promptly tomorrow morning. We're going up the mountain to relax for 3 days and 2 nights. No one is to be absent. He glanced down at the time on the bottom right of his computer, November 12th, 10:15 a.m. At this moment, this scene matched my memory exactly. In the memory, during this winter's team building, a colossal blizzard suddenly hit the mountains. Snow blocked the roads, water, electricity, and food were cut off. Couldn't reach in. In the freezing despair, colleagues who seemed kind and gentle on ordinary days shed their disguises. To snatch the last warm room and the few remaining cans, David and Sarah joined forces to push the most vulnerable person out into the snow outside the door, leaving them to freeze to death. And the person who died that cold, snowy night was me. Without the slightest hesitation, I directly opened the browser and typed the URL of the homestay booking platform. I logged into my account and found the Snow Mountain private master bedroom reservation that had just been paid for yesterday. It was a room with the best lighting in the entire homestay, with its own heating and storage room, originally booked at my own expense. The cursor moved precisely to that red button, and without hesitation, I pressed it, cancel booking. A pop-up appeared on the screen, less than 24 hours to check in. Cancellations will incur a 50% charge of the total room fee. Confirm? I clicked confirm directly. The phone immediately received SMS notifications of the deduction and the refund success. Then I opened the company's internal office system, found the vacation request page, submitted an annual leave request starting from tomorrow, and wrote in the reason, personal emergency. Hey, what are you doing? Sarah had somehow come over and spotted the cancellation confirmation on the phone, and her scream shattered the office's harmony. You canceled the homestay? The bus leaves tomorrow. What does canceling mean now? All eyes in the office instantly focused on me. David's face hardened, and he stood up, coming to the desk, looking down at me with displeasure. What's going on? The team building is a group activity. Administration has already reported the head count. You backing out now isn't uplifting for everyone. Without any extra movement, I placed the freshly printed vacation approval sheet on the desk, looked straight into David's eyes, and said, I have an urgent personal matter to deal with. I won't be going to tomorrow's team building. I'll cover the costs of leaving early myself. It won't use company funds. David frowned, reached out to grab the approval sheet. What urgent matter has to be dealt with at this moment? We're all one team. You're being inappropriate and out of sync. And what about the private master bedroom with its own heating? Our whole trip's rooms are allocated according to the head count. I've already returned the room to the public pool of available houses. The tone was dull, it even carried a hint of coldness. If you need it, you can go to the platform to grab it yourself now. As for my itinerary, I have filed it with HR and received approval. Sarah rolled her eyes at her side and sneered, Isn't it just thinking you've booked a good room? Don't pretend. David, since she cancelled, it's perfect for us to rebook that room for you to stay. Some people would rather not go, so as not to spoil everyone's fun in the mountains. David snorted, a trace of gloom flashing in his eyes, but faced with the vacation approval form already stamped, he couldn't block it. He pulled out his phone and, in front of the whole office, called the inn owner. Hello, is this the owner? I'm the colleague who just cancelled the private master suite. Yes, we want that room, put it on my account. What? I have to pay the full amount again? No problem, charge it to my private card. After hanging up, David looked provocatively over and said, let's see who can't live without whom. When we get to the mountains tomorrow, some people had better not regret not coming to enjoy it. No one answered. They simply quietly packed their personal belongings on the desk into their bags, then picked up their jackets and stood up. On the corridor's TV screen, the meteorological station was broadcasting the latest weather warning. Due to strong cold air, northern mountainous areas of the province will experience heavy snow tonight. Some areas may have blizzards. Please reduce unnecessary travel to large mountain areas. David and Sarah walked past the TV without so much as glancing at it, still excitedly discussing which red wine and barbecue ingredients to bring into the mountains tomorrow. Seeing their backs, a cold chill ran down as the backpack zipper was pulled closed. The next morning at 6, the city sky was a dull gray, low-lying oppressive clouds hanging heavy, and the air carried a damp, chilly smell. By the bus parked at the company gate, colleagues were gathering with big and small luggage. David wore a high-end down jacket, holding coffee in his hand, directing the administrative staff to move crate after crate of red wine and snacks. Sarah wore a refined wool coat, constantly taking photos and checking in at the front of the car with her phone. I carried a simple suitcase and walked straight to the finance staff by the bus, preparing to hand over the final personal reimbursement documents. Yo, isn't that our big shot? Sarah, with sharp eyes, immediately raised her voice, drawing the attention of surrounding colleagues. What, regret it? Carrying a suitcase early in the morning, you want David to let you board? David, upon hearing the voice, walked over slowly, his gaze carrying a condescending arrogance. He glanced at my luggage, snorted, want to change your mind now? Too late. The bus has a strict head count, and that master bedroom you cancelled yesterday, I've already paid the difference out of my own pocket. Now that is my exclusive suite. If you want to go along, you'll have to take a shuttle yourself, and once you get to the mountains you'll be limited to ordinary dormitory-style accommodation. I didn't even glance at them again, simply handing the transfer documents to finance, and said calmly, I'm submitting last week's travel expense vouchers, and by the way, I'm informing finance that I did not participate in this team building, and the portion of the advance that was used for personal expenses, I've transferred the full amount to the finance account, the receipt is here. Finance checked the mobile notification, nodded, received, no issue with the procedures. David's face immediately turned sour. He had thought I would come groveling. He didn't expect me to move so quickly, fully tearing down all financial links. What kind of attitude is this? Sarah stepped forward in high heels, pointing at my nose and shouting, we're all on the same team, who are you trying to show this to? The bus rental is divided by total headcount, you suddenly not going, should the extra costs be borne by everyone? The bus rental costs were already proportionally deducted from my performance deductions last week. You didn't pay a penny more. I turned around, calmly meeting Sarah's eyes. My voice was soft but clearly reached every colleague nearby. Additionally, according to the latest blue alert issued by the Meteorological Bureau half an hour ago, there will be heavy snow in the northern mountainous area tonight. Roads are easily icy and blocked. As a colleague, I'll remind you one last time, it's not too late to cancel the trip now. Blizzard? David burst into loud laughter, as if hearing some grand joke. Did you all hear that? Not only is she not participating in the team building, she's cursing us here. If it snows in the mountains, that's a snow scenery. We spent a lot to go to the mountain in, aren't we just for watching the snow? Without snow, what kind of snow captain is that? Exactly. Sarah chimed in, if you're afraid, just say so, stop pretending to be professional. The place David chose is all top-tier facilities, with underfloor heating and a generator. So what if it snows heavily? Drinking red wine in a heated room, looking at the snow, now that's the luxury. If some people don't have that, they can only stay in your broken rental. A few colleagues who often flattered David also murmured and laughed, their eyes full of contempt and estrangement toward me. I didn't say another word. I had said enough. I had fulfilled both legal responsibilities and the reminder of human sentiment. In the previous life, I tried to stop everyone in the same way, only to be scolded as a spoilsport, and when I was trapped in the mountains, they blamed me for not forcibly stopping them from going into the mountains. Glanced at my watch, 6:30. There are 40 minutes left before the high-speed train to the sunny southern island departs. I turned around, dragging my suitcase, and walked toward the taxi by the roadside without hesitation. Wait! David, seeing that I was leaving, actually ran up a few steps and blocked the car door, speaking in a hostile tone. When you cancelled the main villa subscription, you also cancelled the supplies booking for the guest house, right? Today the kitchen over there just contacted me and said the premium ingredients originally prepared for you have all been returned, which means we're short of half of the imports in Wagyu. I stopped in my tracks, staring coldly at him. What I cancelled was my own private reservation, using my personal limit. If you want Wagyu, you can pay yourself to have the boss procure it now. What do you want me for? Are you being selfish or not? Sarah also ran over to accuse, we're all going out to have fun, and you return the good ingredients, aren't you deliberately trying to disgust us? Move aside. My eyes darkened, and the cold aura surrounding me made the two of them flinch slightly. I reached out and pushed David's hand blocking the door, bent down, and sat in the back seat of the taxi. Driver, to the high-speed railway station. The taxi engine roared as it sped away from the company gate. Through the rearview mirror, I saw the group by the bus still pointing and whispering at me, David waving his hands in a rage, then calling the others to board the bus one after another. Over the bus's loudspeaker, the announcer's voice clearly transmitted, "Urgent weather bulletin, the Northern Mountainous Weather Station has just upgraded the blizzard warning from blue to yellow. It is expected that tonight the snowfall in the mountains will reach a historical high, with some areas accompanied by winds of 7 to 8 on the Beaufort scale. Mountain residents and tourists are urged to evacuate quickly or take cold-proof measures." I leaned back against the headrest and closed my eyes. The train headed south, and the cold, damp atmosphere outside the window gradually gave way to bright sunshine. When I arrived at the island hotel, the outdoor temperature was 26 degrees, and the sea breeze was refreshing. I sat on a rattan chair on the hotel balcony, sipped chilled coconut juice, and opened the mountain weather monitoring system on my phone along with a temporary group chat I had created with colleagues. The mountains at this moment looked completely different. According to the weather radar, the northern mountains were completely swallowed by a blizzard by 4 in the afternoon, and the temperature plummeted to -18 degrees. The strong wind, mixed with the heavy snowfall, completely sealed off the only winding mountain road leading out of the area. Even worse, the strong wind toppled the high-voltage power line poles on the ridges, and the entire mountainous area lost power about half an hour ago. Messages in the group had exploded. At first, everyone was still posting snow scene photos and videos of themselves drinking red wine. But by 7 o'clock in the evening, the tone changed drastically. Sarah sent a 10-odd-second voice message in the group, her voice trembling with fear. "What's going on?" "The power went out suddenly. The underfloor heating has stopped, the room is as cold as an ice cellar." "David, weren't you saying this guest house has top-notch facilities? Where's the owner?" Then there were more colleagues flooding the chat with complaints. "The wind is too strong, the window glass is shaking, it feels like it could be blown apart at any moment. The guest house owner says the mountain road collapsed, the delivery trucks can't come in, so tonight the kitchen only has rice and a few packets of dried chili. The air conditioner in our room won't work at all, the plant heaters are also broken, what should we do?" David quickly sent a reassuring voice message in the group, but the bravado in his voice couldn't cover the truth. "Everyone, don't panic. I've already asked the owner. This is a temporary line fault. The guest house has a backup generator, the owner is on his way to fix it. The master bedroom I'm staying in has an independent fireplace, and there are ample supplies." However, not long after he issued that message, someone in the group blew the lid off the truth. A young colleague who had come along posted a photo. The so-called backup generator, due to years of neglect, started smoking as soon as it was started and completely broke down. Seeing the situation, the guesthouse owner had quietly ridden a snowmobile down the mountain with his own family, leaving behind an empty, cold building and a house full of despair. In the previous life, I was trapped here with them. At that time, to grab the few generators and food there were, everyone pushed all the dirty and tiring work onto me, and in the end, just to occupy the warmest independent master bedroom, they locked me in the windy spot. This time, without me, the patient burden and scapegoat who had been dutiful and self-sacrificing, the internal conflict erupted early. Group voice calls popped up one after another. Sarah shouted directly in the group, "David! How dare you monopolize the independent master bedroom alone? That room was someone else's to begin with. You didn't spend a lot of money at all. What right do you have to live in the warm room with your few influencers, forcing the dozen of ordinary employees to huddle in a room without heating? Yeah. The master bedroom has an independent fireplace and dried wood left from before. Why do you get it all to yourself?" Another colleague peeled back their mask and spoke out, "Open the door. People want to go in to get warm." David sent a furious voice message, "Are you crazy? That room was booked with money from my own private funds. Who are you to squeeze into my room? All of you, go back to your own rooms and stay there. Go to hell with your private funds." A dull crash of a door was heard in the group, followed by a loud shattering of glass. "I'm almost freezing to death. Who cares about whose money you used? Hand over the firewood and food." Immediately after, the group was filled with a sharp cry, curses, and the noises of shoving and grappling. Through the chaotic voice call, the sounds of chairs and furniture being smashed can be clearly heard, along with Sarah's hysterical screams, "Hit him! Brother David hit someone! Help!" I quietly listened to the clash on the other end of the headphones, casually saving a screenshot of the phone screen. Outside, warm sea breeze and the sound of waves. On the phone, cold despair and a desperate struggle. This group of elites who are usually high and mighty and mutually backstabbery, in the face of a survival crisis, couldn't even maintain half an hour of their pretense. I pick up the iced coconut juice and take a sip, and with a light tap of my finger on the screen, I set the group chat to do not disturb. The night on the island was clear and warm, with the tide crashing in regular rhythms on the distant shore. I sat on a lounge chair on the hotel balcony, watching the constant notifications bounce on my phone screen. The signal in the mountains had degraded to the limit in the wind and snow, but the faint remaining waves still intermittently carried the cold and despair from the mountains. At 10:15 p.m., my phone suddenly vibrated violently. The screen showed not group messages, but a private voice call from David. I nonchalantly swallowed a mouthful of chilled sparkling water, pressed the record button, and then slowly answered the call. "Hello? It's me. Are you listening? You listening, right?" David's voice burst from the earpiece, hoarse, heavy with panting, and an undeniable fear. Background noises included a screaming windstorm like an angry ghost, and faint cries and cracking sounds from indoors. "Anything?" My voice was calm and unruffled. "Don't pretend to be innocent with me." David roared in anger, but quickly forced his voice down, adopting a pretend benevolent tone filled with command and threat. "I don't have time to waste with you now. Something big is happening in the mountains. The blizzard has cut off all roads, the inn is without power or heat, the temperature has dropped to -20 degrees. Everyone is freezing solid right now." "Oh," I answered lightly. "What do you mean, oh? Do you have any sympathy at all?" The man on the other end of the line had completely lost control, his voice trembling violently due to extreme cold and anger. "Weren't you saying yesterday that you had friends in rescue teams? Call them right now. Have them use a private helicopter or organize a heavy-duty off-road rescue team to come up the mountain. The costs. The company will figure out the expenses later, you pay up front yourself. Do you hear me? Immediately make arrangements." I sneered softly, shifting to a more comfortable position against the back of the chair. "David, have you frozen and gone crazy? First, I don't have any rescue team friends. Second, the Meteorological Bureau has already issued the highest-level blizzard red alert. Under this weather, not to mention a private helicopter, heavy excavators can't get in. Third, I'm on vacation, your life and death have nothing to do with me. How dare you talk to me like that? David's voice finally revealed a hint of real fear in the scream. I mean, if you all like the single-family master bedroom in blizzard conditions and like to grab advantages, then stay there inside, I coldly asserted, preparing to hang up. Wait! Don't hang up! Please don't hang up! The attitude on the other end suddenly did a 180-degree turn, tearing off all arrogance, breaking into cries and despair. I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have grabbed your room, I shouldn't have forced you to cover the car rental. Sarah and the others went crazy, smashing the wooden doors in the corridor to use as firewood. Just now they smashed my head trying to grab the last 2 bottles of hot mineral water. It's already hell here. Please, help you save me. If you could pay to hire a rescue team, I'll kneel to you. Is that not enough? Too late. I cut the call cleanly. However, hanging up the call alone is far from enough. In my previous life, these people pushed all the blame onto me when we were in dire straits, and even fabricated evidence afterward, accusing me of deliberately luring them into the mountains. This time, I will completely deprive them of all retreat, making it so they cannot survive or die in peace. I open my computer and click on the company-wide mega group chat. This group includes not only people from our department but also senior executives, HR, and the legal department. I have organized all evidence from yesterday to today into a dossier. First, a photo showing the vacation approval I submitted yesterday morning and approved, plus my personal cancellation of the in-booking and the clear bank transfers returning travel prepayments. Second, a screenshot of the blizzard warning published in advance by the Meteorological Bureau, and chat records in our department group where I clearly warned everyone, a blizzard is coming, please cancel the trip. Third, screenshots of David and Sarah mockingly calling me cowardly and ruining the mood in the group, and forcibly using private cards to cover remaining payments to seize the master bedroom of the detached house. Finally, I uploaded the 5-minute audio recording that David just sent me. At the bottom of all the files, I attached an extremely calm and tightly worded note regarding the violation of climbing mountains during team building and resulting safety incidents. I took compliant leave on November 12th and clearly warned the team in advance about the mountainous blizzard risk. However, Supervisor David and employee Sarah severely violated the company's safety management regulations by forcefully leading the team into the dangerous mountains. Facing extreme crises of power outage and lack of food, Supervisor David not only failed to fulfill leadership duties but privately threatened me physically and coerced moral submission, demanding that I personally front a huge amount of private rescue costs. I now publicly present all original evidence to clarify the facts and request the Compliance Department and Legal Department to intervene immediately. Click send. In an instant, the normally quiet company group chat exploded. Although it was late at night, after seeing those clear recordings and screenshots, several senior executives who usually hide away were the first to react. The HR director directly tagged David in the group. David, please explain what this is about. The company explicitly prohibits organizing high-risk group activities in severe weather, yet you brought people into the mountains yourself? And attempting to pressure subordinates to cover rescue costs? The head of the legal department followed with a statement, the recording has been stored. It involves threats to personal safety and risks of improper use of company funds. The legal department has initiated an internal investigation. The top leadership even issued a hard command. This severely damages the company's image. If there are any injuries or deaths, the responsible persons will face judicial investigation. The mountain network signal was intermittent, but I knew David's phone had certainly received these group messages. A few minutes later, David posted one final, nearly crazy voice message in the departmental small group, his voice sharp as a hen's neck being strangled. You actually posted the recording to the big group? You've ruined my future. You've killed us all. You bitch. I won't rest even in death. Accompanied by the raging storm tearing through the air, that voice message abruptly ended. The mountain base station finally collapsed completely under the onslaught of the blizzard, severing all contact between the mountains and the outside world. The second day of the blizzard, the temperature plunged to -22 degrees. The mountain inn had completely become an isolated ice cave. As the only mobile base station collapsed, the last trace of communication with the outside world vanished entirely, and despair spread quickly like a thick poisonous fog inside the sealed doors. The living room temperature had long fallen below freezing. The originally elegant wooden tables and chairs, curtains, and even several decorative paintings were smashed and burnt by the colleagues who had lost their minds. The last ember in the fireplace emitted a faint warmth, and black ashes surged through the vents, painting everyone's faces into a mess. Food had been exhausted by noon. At first, people could still squeeze out half a biscuit or a little mineral water, but once the last reserve was scavenged clean, remaining rationality vanished completely. David hid in the innermost corner of the standalone suite, wrapped in 3 thick down jackets, his lips purple with cold, clutching a black leather briefcase tightly in his hands. Opposite him, Sarah wore a dirty blanket, her hair disheveled, eyes red from crying, staring angrily at the briefcase in David's hands. "Brother David. Give me a bite." Sarah's voice was hoarse as sandpaper against wood. She crawled over, grabbing David's pant leg. "I know you have food in your bag. Before we went up the mountain yesterday, I saw you put 2 boxes of imported chocolate and high-energy bars into the bag with my own eyes. I beg you, give me a bite, I'm freezing to death." "Get lost." David suddenly kicked out, sending Sarah tumbling to the ground, his eyes filled with animalistic ruthlessness and madness. "This is mine. I paid the extra to reserve this room, and the things in this bag are mine too. Why should I give them to you? Get away from me." Nearby colleagues, hearing the words chocolate and high-energy bars, suddenly flashed with bloodthirst in their otherwise numb eyes. 4 or 5 trembling men surrounded him, their steps heavy and dangerous. "David, we're all going to freeze to death, and you're hiding food?" One usually honest colleague picked up a burnt wooden stick from the floor, pointed at David, and roared, "Take it out. Or none of us will have a good day today. What are you guys trying to do? Rebellion? I'm your supervisor." David screamed, pressing the briefcase to his chest, backing against the wall, curling into a ball. "If anyone comes near, after we get out of the mountains, I'll have the company fire you all. Fuck your supervisor. Let's see if we can get out alive first." Suddenly someone yelled something, and the crowd surged forward. The frenzy erupted in the narrow, cold room. The sound of heavy objects colliding, bodies banging, piercing cries, and vicious curses interwove. A few people, fighting over that one briefcase, bit and strangled each other like beasts. David was kicked in the nose during the chaos, blood sprayed out and instantly froze into dark red ice shards on the cold floor. During the struggle, the zipper of the briefcase was torn open with a forceful yank. "Arrrrrrrr," a tearing sound, and the contents spilled onto the floor. There was nothing like high-energy bars or chocolate. Rather, besides half a pack of already dried-out soda crackers, there was a thick stack of paper vouchers and seals that had covered the official documents, as well as several pages of ledgers filled with black accounts. Everyone was stunned. Sarah, closest to him, didn't care about the injuries on her face. She snatched the half-pack of crackers, stuffing them into her mouth ravenously, even licking the residues off the packaging clean. In the process of swallowing, her gaze unintentionally swept over the pile of papers that had fallen to the floor. That was all of David's financial transactions from last year, and his privately forged internal side agreement signatures by the entire team, siphoning the project performance bonus for the whole year. It clearly records that the over $300,000 bonus originally belonging to the entire team was all funneled by David into his private account under fictitious project titles. Not only that, the vouchers also include details of how he secretly withheld subordinates' benefits and reimbursed substandard team-building costs as top-tier high standards. You beast. Sarah glared at the signatures on the paper, her body trembling violently from extreme anger and shock. Last year she worked overtime to the point of hospitalization for the project, yet the final bonus was only a few thousand. The bulk had long been swallowed by David. "Give it to me. Return it to me." David, ignoring the bleeding on his face, pounced wildly to grab the paper. "Everyone, look. Sarah screamed hysterically, lifting the stack of vouchers high. David swallowed all of last year's performance bonuses. We fought hard in front, and he stole our life-saving money behind us. This room, this team-building trip, it's all paid with our bonuses. The already impoverished colleagues were triggered into madness by this truth. Beat him to death. This vampire. Give us our money back. You fraud. The angry crowd surrounded David in the middle, their fists and feet raining down like hail. David lay on the floor wailing, bloodied and battered. Meanwhile, a cold and calculating glint flashed in Sarah's eyes. Seizing the chaotic moment as people attacked David, she stuffed every single page of the financial documents beneath her coat's inner lining without leaving a trace. Supporting her exhausted body, she crawled step by step to the rooftop windscoop of the guest house. The window there was half open, the cold wind howling, but it was the only place in the building that occasionally received a faint satellite signal. Sarah's purple-red fingers struggled to tap on her phone screen. She took photo after photo, and with that faint satellite network, she sent all the evidence of David's embezzlement and forged signatures in one go to the company's official reporting mailbox and the city police emergency alert platform. When the successful send pop-up appeared, Sarah flashed a pale and eerie smile. David. You want us to die here. She whispered to the wind and snow, then I'll first ruin your reputation. The sunshine on the island was so bright it hurt my eyes. I sat in the hotel's lobby bar, a freshly made iced coffee set in front of me. The phone screen lit up, showing a call from the City Public Security Bureau Criminal Investigation Division. I gracefully raised the coffee to take a sip, then pressed the answer button. Hello, is this the head of the Customer Service Department? We are from the City Public Security Bureau Economic Crime Investigation Brigade. A stern, steady police voice came from the other end. We have received an urgent report. The informant claims that while being trapped in the northern mountainous area, they found your department head David involved in substantial embezzlement and forging company seals. Because communications in the mountains are down, we need to verify some key information with you. Officer, I will cooperate fully. I lowered my voice, calm and objective. Regarding David, I have a complete chain of evidence here. It includes him forging subordinate signatures, misappropriating team funds, and signing illegal union contracts in his private capacity, with electronic backups. In a previous life, I had secretly collected all the evidence of David siphoning funds and engaging in illicit operations. I just hadn't reported it yet when I was trapped on the snow mountain. In this life, Sarah's desperate report letter from the brink of death happened to become the perfect trigger point. Very grateful for your cooperation. This evidence is crucial. The officer's tone was cold. Rescue teams and police have formed a strike force and are attempting to force their way into the mountains. But according to the latest feedback, the mountain conditions are extremely harsh. Understood. Thank you for your hard work, officer. After ending the call, I opened a private weather and equipment monitoring app on my phone. The guest house's main network was down, but a small outdoor environmental monitor had been sporadically transmitting its final data to the cloud. The data showed that the interior temperature of the guest house had dropped to -18 degrees. Accompanied by a drastic surge in smoke concentration and an abnormally high temperature alert, the mountains had caught fire. The mountain guest house at this moment had already become a true ice and fire hell. To withstand sub-zero cold, a battered, bruised, nearly beaten to a pulp, David pushed open the door to the underground storage room. Inside, he found an obsolete diesel generator and a half-full barrel of who knows how old inferior diesel. I have power. I have heat. David screamed crazily, pouring diesel into the generator, paying no mind to the aging circuitry and potential oil leaks. He forcefully rocked the handle, and with a violent roar and black smoke, the generator began to shake violently. A barely their current momentarily lit a lamp in the standalone suite. Sarah and several freezing colleagues, seeing this, crowded into the room, scrambling to get near the generator for warmth. However, in less than 10 minutes, the aged exposed wires overloaded and sparked violently. Sparks fell onto the remaining diesel on the floor, and with a roar, a raging fire instantly spread along the wooden floor. "It's on fire! Put it out!" Sarah shouted, sprinting toward the exit. But the entire guesthouse had its windward doors and windows sealed with wood boards and rags. The smoke quickly filled the space, the acrid, burnt smell suffocating everyone. People, like headless flies, fumbled through the smoke and flames, trampling and pushing each other. In a bid to reach the only exit, David forcefully knocked over a female colleague, stepping over her body to climb out. Sarah, meanwhile, used a wooden stick to push aside the blocking colleague and fled outside in a panic. The fire spread rapidly, swallowing the standalone suite and the remaining heating equipment entirely. Although they eventually broke out of the burning building through the windows, they lost the shelter of the structure and were completely exposed to a blizzard of 20 degrees below zero with an 8-level wind. They wore ragged down jackets charred by smoke and torn by sparks, crouching in the snow, shivering, watching the only shelter turn to ashes. No heating, no food, no safe haven, and even the last shred of moral bottom line completely collapsed in the fire and the stampede. David sat paralyzed in the snow pile, one side of his face burned, his nose swollen and bruised, his body covered with wounds from his coworkers' beatings. He looked at the cold, murderous stares of the subordinates beside him, who wished to peel his skin and pull out his sinews, and his entire body trembled violently. In the early morning of the third day, the blizzard that had raged for 2 full days and nights finally began to subside. The mountains shed their clouds, and the blinding daylight flashed through. Heavy armored snowcats and rescue helicopters hammered through the ice and opened a way, forcing a passage into the mountains. When the red rescue-suited team members rushed into the ruins, they were shaken by the sight before them. Beside the guesthouse wreckage scorched by the fire to only a few charred pillars, a dozen or so ice-sculpted figures curled up in a ball. Their clothes were ragged, their faces smeared with soot and dirt, many of them stiff and with severe frostbite and mental confusion. David huddled in the corner, his right cheek swollen with a burn, eye socket sunken, his gaze filled with madness and despair. Sarah slumped on the snow, her fingers blackened and necrotic from the cold. The rescuers lifted this group of mentally collapsed, cursing each other victims onto stretchers and hauled them back down to the central hospital at the foot of the mountain. However, what awaited them was not warm flowers and comforting loved ones. In the emergency lobby on the first floor, the atmosphere was as cold as the accumulated snow on the mountaintop. 10 uniformed police officers and 4 corporate lawyers with briefcases had already lined up, waiting. The door of the emergency room swung open, and I, wearing a sharp black cashmere coat and high heels, strode through. My crisp footsteps echoed clearly in the empty corridor. I had rushed back from the island on the earliest flight, looking pristine and precise, a stark contrast to the shabby and bedraggled people lying on the hospital beds. "You. How are you here?" David, lying on a mobile bed, widened his eyes in disbelief as soon as he saw me. He trembled, raising his frostbitten finger at me, hoarse with a roar, "It's you. You did this to us. You watched us die and did not save us. Officer, arrest her. Arrest her." Around him, colleagues also voiced weak, venomous affirmations, yes. She knew there was snow and yet deliberately cleared the room. She deliberately watched us die. Silence. The team leader of the criminal police unit coldly flicked a glance at David and handed him a legal document stamped with a red seal. "David, this is a detention notice. You are suspected of embezzlement in your duties, forging company seals, and intentional injury. We are now taking criminal coercive measures against you according to the law." David's arrogant air instantly froze on his face, his complexion as pale as paper. "No. It's impossible. I'm the victim. I nearly froze to death on the mountain." "Victim?" I walked to the bedside, looking down on him with no warmth in my eyes. I took several hefty documents from the legal affairs manager, and in front of all the colleagues, one by one, I laid them out. "David, during the 48 hours you were trapped in the mountains, the company's compliance department and audit department have completed a thorough audit of your accounts." My voice rang clearly through the entire hall. You used your position to embezzle more than 120,000 yuan in department performance over the past 3 years, forged signatures of 14 subordinates, and in this team-building trip you illegally forced the group into the mountains, causing multiple employees severe frostbite and property losses. I lightly tossed the first document onto his chest. This is the company's termination notice. You are being dismissed without pay. Then I looked towards Sarah, lying on another hospital bed. Sarah, upon meeting my gaze, shrank under the blankets in fear. Sarah, I handed over the second document. You were involved in a private gain theft and assault with David in the mountains, and you are also suspected of participating in falsifying reimbursement vouchers. This is your termination notice and the company's lawsuit against you for recovery. No! I was forced. It was David who ordered me. Sarah screamed hysterically, tears and snot mixing with the dirt on her face as she sobbed. I've given all of his crimes to the police. I am the whistleblower. You cannot fire me. Whistleblowing cannot absolve crime. The legal affairs manager interjected coldly, you are involved in joint crimes. The same punishment awaits you under the law. The surroundings fell into dead silence. Those colleagues who once mocked, bullied, and even fought ferociously in the mountains for food with David, lowered their heads one by one, not daring to look at me. They had not only endured physical injuries and torture but would also completely lose their future livelihoods through dismissal, compensation, and bearing the stain. Take them away. The captain of the criminal police team waved the handcuffs. The officers stepped forward, and the cold handcuffs were directly shackled onto David and Sarah's frostbitten hands. Amid the crisp clank of metal, David let out a desperate scream and wail. I stood in the middle of the corridor, coldly watching them be driven into the police car. The smell of disinfectant in the ward was pungent to stinging, but more unbearable than the disinfectant was the despair and ugliness that swept over them. Considering the severe frostbite suffered by David and Sarah and others, the police temporarily detained them in the isolation ward of a judiciary-designated hospital for treatment. However, these people did not repent for their rebirth. Instead, they placed their last hope in manipulating public opinion. On the second day of hospitalization, lying on the hospital bed, David contacted several small media outlets and self-media bloggers through his family, and released a carefully edited video online. In the video, his face was bruised, wrapped in thick gauze, and he cried and accused the camera, "We were just attending the company's ordinary team-building activity, not expecting to encounter a once-in-a-century blizzard." Yet our department's deputy supervisor, knowing the mountains were dangerous, not only fled the scene herself, but also refused to provide any rescue when we were trapped in extreme cold and deprived of water and food. Not only did she not rescue us, she even did blackmail behind our backs. Such a cold-blooded person does not deserve to be alive. Sarah also played along in the video, raising her badly frostbitten and blackened fingers high, crying out heartbreakingly to the camera, "Look at my hands." We could have lived much better, but because she did not save us and even shared our rescue recordings in the group, ridiculing us. This is premeditated murder. Immediately, riding on sensational tags like Snow Mountain victims and cold-blooded colleague refuses to help, the video quickly ferments on social platforms, and netizens who lack the full picture begin to swarm me with personal attacks and online harassment. Phones and private messages are flooded with abusive messages. Faced with this torrent of slander, I did not stir at all. At 3 p.m, in the grand banquet hall of a 5-star hotel in the city center, a press conference I personally prepared was held on time. Journalists from major mainstream media across the city crowded the floor, and dozens of cameras were aimed at the podium. I wore a clean, sharp dark blue suit, walking to the microphone with composure. Without any pretentious emotional setup, I directly displayed the oversized projection screen behind me. Dear media friends, regarding the so-called Sea Death and Not Rescue incident that has been circulating online recently, today I am announcing the complete original facts and evidence chain here. My voice was clear and forceful, carried through the microphone to fill the hall. The first frame appeared. This is the official meteorological warning record I submitted and kept during a department meeting on the morning of November 12th, along with a written report I explicitly submitted to the supervisor David requesting the cancellation of the trip. But the other party rejected it outright, labeling it as spoiling the mood. The second frame appeared, a clear micro dashcam video and audio. This is the day the bus departed. I reminded the team again of the blizzard risk, recorded on site. You can also see that after I personally cancelled the homestay, how David and Sarah verbally assaulted me in the office and forcibly used personal funds to seize the master bedroom. The reporters on site were scandalized. Cameras flashing wildly. The so-called fleeing at the critical moment suddenly became a reasonable avoidance of danger in the face of precise warning reports and withdrawal procedures. But this is only the beginning. I let out a cold laugh and clicked the third video file. What about the questions everyone is concerned about, the refusing to rescue and not providing aid? What is the truth? I looked up, directly into the camera. This is the cloud-backed indoor surveillance footage from the homestay. At the first moment of the blizzard, it was not that rescue was impossible, but that Supervisor David, in order to monopolize the only heating and food, joined with Sarah to shut out other colleagues and even attacked them. The large screen clearly displayed the ugly scene of David beating a colleague to seize the briefcase, and Sarah grabbing the last half-pack of cookies. It then showed David operating an aging diesel generator illegally, causing a fire, and even pushing a fellow inmate to flee first from the scene. Even more ridiculous, I played the final segment of the phone recording, which was the audio David left me from the mountains. The other party demanded I personally fund the private helicopter rescue and threatened to fire me and blacklist me from the industry if I refused. Please tell me, in the face of someone who ignores safety rules, illegally embezzles funds, harms a colleague in dire straits, and extorts me, am I obligated to put my own life and property on the line to pay for his crimes? The evidence was rock solid, flawless. Those who had once touted morality online immediately turned traitor, and public opinion took a devastating reversal. Oh my God, what victim is this? This is clearly a group of scum tearing each other apart. Refusing to help yourself and still relying on others to rescue you? What right do they have to fund your private helicopter? Support the heroine. If it were me, I would definitely not save this pack of squinting wolves. As the press conference ended, the police, armed with the newly released video evidence, went to the hospital and formally placed the bedridden David and Sarah under criminal detention. The wave of the press conference had just subsided, and the police's in-depth investigation began as scheduled. In the previous life, I only knew that David ran the company with an iron fist, but I didn't know there was an even bigger mastermind behind him. A major collaboration project in the department mysteriously disappeared after the extreme cold event, causing the company to shoulder tens of millions in compensation, and in the end all the charges were laid at me, who had already died on the snowy mountain. In this life, I will not give them any chance to turn the tables. Using the yin-yang contract previously found in David's briefcase and the complete documentary evidence Sarah uploaded in a state of extreme despair, I traced the clues and directly pinpointed the external collaborator who had been secretly colluding with David all along, Eric. Eric is a well-known front-running broker in the industry. On the surface he runs a high-end business consulting company, but in private he entices company executives to sign overpriced, substandard contracts with large rebates, even siphoning off the core assets of partners. I sat in the office and printed out the final asset flow chart I had prepared. The chart clearly shows that over the past 2 years, David had been providing the department's core software architecture and client list to Eric's company free of charge under the banner of technical consulting. Eric, through offshore accounts overseas, regularly deposited enormous consulting fees into David's name. This was no longer mere embezzlement. It was a bona fide act of corporate espionage and a serious violation of trade secrets. Knock, knock. The door rapped, and the joint investigation team from compliance and audit entered. Leading the audit director's expression was extremely austere. We have verified the funds flow chain you submitted between Eric and David. The facts show that Eric's company not only stole our core assets but also submitted a large amount of fraudulent qualification proofs in the latest compliance review. What is his plan now? I handed over a cup of coffee and asked calmly. Eric, after hearing that David has fallen, plans to offload the stolen assets at a discount to overseas buyers and then launder the funds out of the country. The audit director sneered. He thinks once David is in, no one will know his involvement in this matter. He won't get away with it. I opened the computer screen and revealed the trap I had prepared in advance. Before David entered the mountains, I intentionally planted compliant test data with tracking marks in David's computer under the pretext of handing over the work. Eric, wanting to cash out quickly, had just logged into the database this morning and downloaded all documents with the marks to his personal encrypted server. Every download action, every IP address, and his English communications with overseas buyers are being recorded in real time by the cloud server. I moved the mouse to the submit button and said, as long as these evidences are synchronized with the Economic Investigation Bureau, Eric's theft is a current offense. An hour later, the City Economic Investigation team launched a furious operation. At that moment, Eric was seated in a 5-star hotel executive suite, drinking champagne. Staring at the progress bar on his computer showing transmission 100% complete, preparing to embark on his asylum journey. Boom! The door was forcefully kicked in. Several uniformed officers rushed into the room, and in Eric's terrified gaze, all computers were sealed on the spot, and prepared passports and foreign currency cash were seized. All right, Mr. Eric, you are suspected of illegal acquisition of trade secrets, major corporate espionage, and large-scale money laundering. You are hereby subjected to criminal coercive measures. The team leader calmly presented the arrest warrant. The champagne flute in Eric's hand smashed to the ground, shattering into pieces, and the cold wine splashed onto him. He slumped to the floor, his face pale, unable to understand why the secret network of interests he had built so covertly could be uprooted in just 3 days. With Eric's arrest, all the associates involved in the transfer of interests behind him were captured. The core assets of the company that had been stolen were fully recovered, and all potential enormous losses were completely resolved. 2 weeks later, the early morning in the court's grand courtroom was eerily quiet. The spectator seats were packed with reporters from major news outlets and former colleagues. I wore a well-cut, wrinkle-free black suit and sat at the frontmost positions of the plaintiff's bench and the company's representative bench. After a moment, accompanied by the heavy footsteps of the bailiffs, the gate at the defendant's enclosure was slowly opened. David, who a few months ago was still full of vigor and invincible in the office, was now shaved bald, wearing a gray prison vest, and handcuffed with cold shackles. His right cheek bore a terrifying scar from severe frostbite and burns, his feet scraped along the floor, and he walked with a limp, a sign that his left big toe had been amputated during detention due to deep frostbite necrosis. Behind him entered Sarah. Once extremely vain and meticulous about her appearance every day, her face was now gaunt, her eyes blank, both hands wrapped in thick gauze, equally stripped of her former arrogance and shrewdness. As the two passed the spectator seats and saw me sitting in the front row, their bodies trembled violently. David's eyes bloomed with extreme hatred and despair. His lips trembled violently, yet he could not utter a single complete sentence. The gavel struck heavily, its crisp sound echoing through the grand courtroom. We will now proceed with the court verdict. The judge's expression was solemn, and his voice resonated through the hall via the microphone. Defendant David, abusing your position to embezzle a total of 1.26 million yuan from your unit, your conduct constitutes embezzlement of public funds, a huge amount. Forging the company seal and subordinate signatures constitutes forgery of company seals. Illegally leading a team into the mountains and, in extreme cold, using obsolete dangerous equipment to start a fire, causing multiple serious injuries and substantial property damage, constituting a major accident and negligent causing of serious injury. Secretly stealing and illegally providing trade secrets to a third party, constituting illegally obtaining trade secrets. The offenses are consolidated. It is decided to impose a fixed-term prison sentence of 15 years, confiscate all personal property, and impose a fine of 500,000 yuan. Defendant Sarah, involved in forging reimbursement documents, constitutes accomplice to embezzlement. In a sudden crisis, deliberately assaulting and injuring another person constitutes intentional injury. The offenses are consolidated. It is decided to impose a fixed-term prison sentence of 5 years and a fine of 100,000 yuan. External collaborator Eric constitutes illegal obtaining of trade secrets and huge money laundering, sentenced to 8 years in prison, all illegal proceeds confiscated, and the plaintiff company compensated for economic losses of 12 million yuan. Listening to the judge's stern verdict word by word, David fell to the floor with his legs giving way, letting out a howl of despair like a wounded beast. 15 years of imprisonment, plus a paralyzing disability and the liquidation of all his assets, would bury his latter life completely within the pitch-black high walls. And Sarah, with her hands covering her face, cried out in a heart-wrenching wail at the defendant's bench. 5 years in prison, for someone in the prime of youth, meant the thorough ruination of her career, reputation, and future. The gavel struck again, court adjourned. I slowly stood up, straightened the lapel of my suit, and did not look back at the group of utterly fallen losers in hell a single more time. In the afternoon of that day, the company's board held a special urgent meeting. In the bright, spacious top-floor conference room, the chairman personally poured me a cup of coffee and solemnly handed me an appointment letter in front of all board members and the senior executives of each department. In the face of this unprecedented crisis, the chairman scanned the room, his voice filled with admiration and respect. "You have not only demonstrated extraordinary crisis warning and risk control capabilities, but at a critical moment when the company's assets were severely harmed, you relied on absolute composure and meticulous logic to recover millions in losses and purge the enormous internal tumor that was hiding within." The directors stood up one after another, and the applause thundered. With all directors voting in favor, the chairman officially announced, effective immediately, "I am formally appointed as the company's Global Business Risk Control and Compliance Director, and also the department's highest administrative officer." I took hold of that heavy appointment letter, my gaze level with every executive in attendance, and a confident, graceful smile spread across my face. In the previous life, I toiled diligently in this company, yet David and Sarah treated me as a stepping stone and a scapegoat, and I died in a freezing -20-degree snow cave. In this life, I, armed with absolute rationality and legitimate means, have sent those who harmed me to prison, and have completely ascended to the highest seat of power that they once crushed me to kneel before. The promotion party was held in the city's most luxurious cloud-level banquet hall, the neon night view of the whole city stretching out beneath my feet, like a brilliant sea of stars. Under the dazzling lights, elegant attire, clinking cups. The newly appointed directors, top industry partners, and the company's executives raised their glasses and gathered around me, vying to offer congratulations and flattery. Truly young and capable. This crisis PR and compliance cleanup is a textbook-level case for the industry. Congratulations, Director. In the future, with you leading the department, we can finally rest easy. I wore a simple yet elegant black evening gown, holding a half-full glass of pale gold champagne, with a composed and aloof smile, handling every guest with ease. At 9:30, my phone vibrated softly inside my clutch. I apologized with a smile to the directors in front of me, then turned and walked to the quiet VIP lounge, unlocking the screen. The message came from a liaison at the judicial authorities, just a short text and a few attached photos. Notice, defendants David and Sarah, on their first day of incarceration, in extreme panic and mutual shirking of responsibility for compensation, engaged in a violent physical altercation in the prison preparation area. David tore at Sarah with a severely disabled arm, causing a serious head injury to Sarah. David also suffered a fractured skull and an infected fever during the clash. Both have been separately confined according to regulations and face additional charges. Opening the photos, the former domineering supervisor in the office is now shaved bald, curled up in a narrow, cold cell corner, covered in blood, eyes filled with only fear and endless despair. And Sarah, with her hair loose, crying. With gauze wrapped around her 10 fingers oozing dark red blood through the fighting. Without the binding of interests, without the glossy disguise, these two demons who once joined forces to push me into a desperate situation, in the remaining years behind bars, could only bite each other like mad dogs, dragging each other deeper into hell. I looked at the photos, a cold, relieved arc flickering at the corners of my mouth, then casually deleted the pictures along with the information. I turned around and walked slowly to the huge floor-to-ceiling window in the top-floor office. The night wind roared outside the window, but it could no longer erode this room, warm as spring, in the slightest. I pulled open the bottom drawer of the desk and took out a photo that had long yellowed and even creased, a pre-departure group photo from a previous lifetime when my entire team went on a snow-capped mountain team-building trip. Everyone in the photo wore a hypocritical smile, while in the previous lifetime I stood foolishly in a corner, completely unprepared for what was to come. That was the last keepsake I left in this world in my previous life, and the very beginning of my rebirth and bloody revenge. I looked at the exaggerated faces of David and Sarah in the photo, and in their eyes there was no anger, no resentment, only a calm and indifference that could see through all things. I placed the photo into the heavy electric shredder beside the desk. With the machine's soft, regular whir, the cold blades bit into the photo with precision and ruthlessness, shredding it into extremely fine fragments, which slid into the dustpan and dropped to the bottom, leaving not a trace to piece together. All that had happened in the past, the deceit, oppression, betrayal, despair, and that weak soul frozen to death in the -20-degree blizzard, was wiped out in this moment as the photo disappeared completely. I turned around, finishing the last of the champagne in my glass. The glass window reflected a tall, capable, and determined silhouette. I was no longer the scapegoat to be slaughtered, no longer the soft target in the workplace to please anyone. With my own wisdom, methods, and absolute rationality, I personally tore apart the shackles of fate and reclaimed everything that was rightfully mine. The bustling city night sprawls beneath my feet, infinite future and supreme power gathering in the palm of my hand. This vengeance game, led and perfectly concluded by me, ends completely here. And the new era in which I control my own life has only just begun, its glorious prelude just unfolding. Spin-off, on the winter solstice 3 years later, the first cold snap sweeps the city. I stand outside the joint judicial mediation center established by the provincial women's prison and men's prison, wearing a sharply cut charcoal gray cashmere overcoat, pinching a copy of the civil compensation enforcement completed rulings just issued by the court. Today is the day the last joint liability compensation under David and Sarah is forcibly transferred to the company account. As the lead plaintiff from the original case and the current group executive director, I signed to confirm the final freezing and write-off procedures for the entire set of assets. After completing the procedures, I do not leave immediately. I stand behind the one-way glass in the corridor, glancing at the conference room inside. On the other side of the iron bars, David sits in a wheelchair, pushed in by a guard. 3 years of prison life and severe frostbite left him aging rapidly, looking like a 60-year-old man. His once plump body had withered. The scar on his right face from burns and frostbite looked deathly pale gray, and his left ankle was entirely missing, making sitting require a desperate grip on the chair. Opposite him, Sarah wears a bulky prison uniform. Her once carefully maintained hair has been shaved short, exposing a mottled scalp, permanent scars from an earlier fight with David in the prison prep area. Her mutilated hands could no longer hold a pen, so a guard grips her wrist to stamp a bright red fingerprint on the settlement acknowledgement. The signature is done. The guard packs the document away, coldly saying, "All your properties, cars, and account balances have been fully deducted. If there is any labor remuneration during the remainder of the sentence, it will continue to be deducted proportionally until the fines are paid in full." Sarah stares blankly at her charcoal-like curled fingers, then suddenly screams like a madwoman, "Why? I have nothing left. My house, my savings, my entire life is ruined. David, you beast, it's all your fault. If you hadn't coveted that little money back then and forced everyone into the mountains, how could I be like this now?" She crazily slams the desk with her mangled arm, trying to grab David. David is terrified, flinching backward, but losing a leg, he falls from the wheelchair to the cement floor, flailing pathetically. His face twists with veins bulging, and he curses hoarsely as he wrestles on the ground. "Are you blaming me? Who is the one stealing the last half a pack of biscuits in the mountains? Who beat me to a bloody pulp? It was you who wrote the complaint first. You vile bitch, you'll go to hell even after you die." "Quiet! Hold them down." Guards swarm in, cold batons and shackles pinning the two struggling and biting bodies to the ground. The screeching alarms and vicious curses echo through the sealed room, as ugly as an endless beast fight. I stand behind the glass, expressionless, watching the scene. In the previous life, on that 20-degree below storm night, they also trampled me without restraint, throwing me into the icy abyss. They believed survival of the fittest was the rule of the world, but forgot that the abyss never spares those who commit evil. Now, within these dark, sunless walls, they will spend their remaining long years tearing each other's lingering souls apart and chewing on the evil they themselves sowed, day and night. I turn away, receding my gaze, and walk toward the sunlit door. The sky outside is a blue, clear expanse. The cold air is fresh and free. The driver opens the door, and I calmly step into the back seat. "Chairman, where are we going?" Back to the headquarters, I close the folder, replying coolly, "Next quarter's global M&A deal. The meeting starts promptly in half an hour." The black car smoothly merged onto the wide main road, leaving the cold highwall and the desperate cries far behind its wheels. The blizzard is over, and the warm sun is blazing.